Yo, motorheads, could this be the best bang for your buck in the EV world out there? I mean, I kind of think so, but it's close, and it's real close. So let's break this thing down like a plastic Christmas tree in late January to find out. Anyway, welcome back to Gearbox Pizza, your local neighborhood source for relatively biased opinions on all things automotive. Okay, so what is this thing? Well, they call it the EV6, and it's made by our Korean pals IKEA, and it's an all-electric fastback hatch sort of thing, and we like it a lot. Now, look, this is not the only little Korean EV that's making a splash right now. So I'm sure you've seen the EV6's cousin, that Hyundai Ioniq 5, but if you haven't, you should really check out this video we made not that long ago. It's a pretty badass EV, and we're all pretty impressed by it, but then again, we're sort of pretty impressed by both of these, but for different reasons. So this probably is not going to come as a shock, but these two share the same platform and battery options. What's interesting though is that range is a tad bit different between the two. So the standard range EV6 with its 58 kilowatt battery, it's got a range of about 232 miles compared to about 220 with the same spec Ioniq 5. If they sell it or even if they make it, because it's not been confirmed, but whatever. Right, so when you look at the big battery long range versions, the story's about the same, with that EV6 maxing out at a really solid 310 miles, while that Ioniq 5 tops out at about 303 miles. Look, these are close enough where this really shouldn't influence your decision at all. Anyhow, the reason for the mileage discrepancies, well, really comes down to styling and aero mostly. It's pretty obvious that Kia is slipperier through the air than the 80s take of what a car of the future might look like, Ioniq 5. So yeah, styling, and I'm willing to bet that this is going to be like the make or break feature. Well, it's not really a feature, but yeah. You'll just be kind of picking the one that looks cooler to you. And this is where it starts to get fun. Alright, look, if I'm being honest, totally honest, I just kind of like both of them, and I know that totally sounds like a cop-out, but I just do, whatever. While the Ioniq is sort of looking in the rear view for its styling inspiration, the EV6 is focused on the future. And gun to my head, I'm probably picking the EV6, but it's super close for me. And this is where the aftermarket might just be the tipping point. I mean, they're both a few grand away, I think, for just really looking amazing. I mean, for me, I'd pulled all the badges right off, and yeah, I know, to do it right, it's gonna require a little bit of Bondo work, but that's all right. Next, I'm thinking a very dark gray matte wrap with quote unquote bigger than you need blacked out wheels. And finally, what do you say we decross over these turkeys and drop them both about an inch or even an inch and a half if you're really committed. And look, I'm not that big of an aftermarket guy, but both these fellows are just so close to looking amazing, I think you just sort of have to go for it. Alright, so this thing looks cool. But does it go? And by go, I mean, well, does it have the power to back up those looks? Well, I mean, the answer is kind of yes and kind of no. Look, with just about everything these days, you can kind of get as much power as you can afford, more or less. So what do you say we take a look at the trims? So to get your butt behind the wheel of an EV6, you're looking at just under 41 grand. I mean, cool, right? Well, look, don't get too excited. I mean, yeah, 41 grand's a lot of money. But it's hard to recommend the entry-level quote-unquote light version of this thing unless you're already sort of stretching the budget a bit. So obviously this is the single motor rear-wheel drive version, and it makes a pretty weak 167 horse, and it's an okay 258 pound-feet of torque. This guy also comes with that smaller 58 kilowatt-hour battery, which is good for about 232 miles, so at least the range is decent here. As expected, this guy is a bit light in the standard equipment department, but if you're good with cloth seats, then you'll probably just be fine here, as a lot of the more important stuff sort of standard. Alright, so if your budget and your need for power and range are getting the best of you, you can step up to the quote-unquote wind trim, which starts at about 47 grand. But that's for the single motor rear wheel drive version that makes a slightly improved 225 horsepower with the same 258 pound-feet of torque. That wind trim will also come standard with the bigger 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery, and this model specifically is going to be the range champion of the group with a very solid 310 miles of go. Not bad, but look, been a hard couple of years. You've been working hard, right? personally, I think you're worth it. I think you deserve the second motor with that extra power. So yeah, if you want to step up to the double motor here, it's going to bump up that starting price to about 51 grand. So about a 4K premium over the single motor version. But I think it's worth it. Not only do you get the added benefits of an all-wheel drive system, you get that extra power. How much? Well, how's 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque? All right, Kia, now we're talking. 0 to 60 is going to come in at about 5 seconds flat, which is, yeah, it's plenty fast. Now, the only drawback here is that we're going to take a little hit in the range department. Nothing crazy, but you're still going to get a pretty solid 274 miles here. Still plenty good if you ask me. Now, where the light version is relatively light in the options department, now we're getting some pretty cool standard stuff. You get that navigation, heated and ventilated front seats. There's this 14 speaker Meridian sound system, smart power tailgate. Not sure why it's smart, but whatever. An onboard power generator, which is awesome and allows you to power all kinds of stuff from your EV6, even like small appliances, which is great for camping, tailgating. Awesome. You also get a heat pump. That's super nice for you turkeys that live in like the top half of the country. I'm thinking this version with the double motors, well, I think it's going to be the best selling trim, but we're just going to have to wait. All right, so next we got the GT line. Now, battery and motor wise, we're looking at the same options as you get in the Wind trim. You can stick with the single motor rear wheel drive version, and that's going to start at about 51 grand, or you can step up to the double motor all wheel drive version for 56 grand. All right, so the batteries and the motor are the same. So what do you get for all that extra cheddar? Well, you get a powered sunroof and Kia's Highway Drive Assist 2, which is some, I don't know, semi-autonomous system, I guess. Style-wise, now here's some goodies. There's pop-out flush door handles and body-colored wheel arches that actually make a pretty big noticeable visual difference here. You also get a flat-bottom steering wheel. Who doesn't love that, right? Everybody loves that. You get these deluxe scuff plates and an optional suede and vegan leather interior. Now there's a bunch of other stuff also, but nothing all that crazy exciting. Anyway, look, this is the sporty one, and yeah, it looks really good with these changes, and this is the trim I'd probably be looking at, except Kia is making a real badass version of this thing that's going to be called the EV6 GT. And look, I'll be honest, this thing is freaking exciting. For those of us that would love to have a Taycan Cross Turismo Turbo S but can't hit a jump shot, and yeah, look, starting for the Lakers, probably not in the cards. Well, this might be the next best thing. So it's a double motor, an all-wheel drive layout, obviously, and this little Land Piranha is gonna make 576 horsepower. Now that's a lot of go. Enough to get this thing to 60 in under 3.5 seconds. Yeah, it's fast. And it's easily going to be the most expensive EV6. But when you think about it, at an estimated starting price of about 60 grand, I think it's probably a pretty solid value. Now, this does put this right in Tesla's crosshairs with the Model 3 and Y performance models, which might actually make a little bit less power. But there's some Tesla black magic that allows pretty much all of their vehicles to launch with like the force of 1,000 tornadoes. And to be honest, I'm not sure which I would pick between the EV6 GT and the Model 3 or Y Performance. I mean, it might come down to style. I don't know, but seriously, amazing. There's just no wrong choices here. All right, so what's the bottom line? Well, I think this EV6 is gonna have wide appeal, and I could generally see people choosing this over the Hyundai Ioniq as that 80s teen dream styling. I mean, awesome as it is, it's not gonna be for everyone. And the EV6 just kind of looks great in a non-divisive or controversial / retro way. So the model lineup spans over 20 grand from the entry-level light to that top trim GT. So there's gonna be something for most people's budgets, and they should generally be pretty happy with whatever their choice may be. Personally, I'm kind of looking at that GT as this like budget Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo that's gonna give you like 75% of the performance for a third of the price. Set aside a few grand for some custom aftermarket bits and you could have something really special. I mean, good on you, Kia. I think you made a goodie.